komt... Ah, daar is Nanna.
Is er een klemmetje?
Ja. Nou, dat moet dan zo. Maar jij bent tevreden? Ja. Goed zo.
Ja, kijk, wat een opkomst. Ja, fantastisch mensen.
Ja, dat kun jij alleen maar. Er is één meisje, die ken ik ergens van. En dat is heel ingewikkeld. Zo van, waar ken ik haar van? Kijk, dit is ons praatje.
Dit is mijn praatje.
Deze zijn voor de zaal. Oh, dat weet jij natuurlijk allemaal.
Nee, Nanna. Ja.
En jongen, die jongen heeft college van mij gehad. Die met die streepjes eruit. Ja, dat is wel heel erg leuk.
Hoe gaan we het ook weer doen?
Dit pak jij. Ik start.
En waar ben ik?
Daar.
Vandaag geen tuurgental. En hier, jij dan nog? Oh, dan ben ik klaar gewoon. Nee, hier.
Nee, dan ga je nog een keer. Dan ga je naar de randomizer weer.
Waar dan? Shit. Ja. Oké.
Of ben ik dan juist? Nou ja.
Ik ga gewoon weer lezen.
Oké.
Hoe dan? Jij hier?
We wachten nog 3 minuten.
Ik hier, de woordsnapboek.
For our online audience.
Jij weer?
So now we have to do a little dance, I
Ga
guess.
jij daar?
Ja? Okay. Hi everybody. Welcome. I hope today it will be not the tears and talks. Welcome in Kazerne, home of design. No. Yeah. Welcome to you all on this International Women's Day. Emancipation is still an important part of becoming a more inclusive world to everything and everyone. Today we are celebrating what we achieved the last decades. I especially want to remember that my mom still had to quit her job when she got married. So we come from in quite a short time we did a lot. Remembering our grandmas, what they were, the world they lived in. So today we're in Kazerne, home of design, in Eindhoven, in the exhibition Between No Longer and Not Yet. This book, Critical Concepts for the Creative Humanities by Iris van der Tuin and Nanna Verhoeff, was a huge inspiration for this. Between No Longer and Not Yet is a place, a moment, or a movement in which imagination can take place. Through the work of leading designers, Kazerne calls on us to make sense of the potential of this in-between phase and to dream, to let us wonder and get inspired by hopeful new perspectives. I call for a meaningful utilization of the Between No Longer and Not Yet potential of imagination and especially also collaboration. Let us cherish the uncertainty of this in-between phase and assume that's also the responsibility. I think we need to really assume responsibility to create hopeful new examples. Together from all domains, designers, educators, governments, businesses, scientists, everyone, cutting right through all the layers and all the boxes. Taking the entanglement from the history to the future, from asset to waste seriously. Because we have to. We need a radical change to redesign our natural cultural world. So that we can be catapulted towards a more humane and sustainable world for everyone and everything. I hope the book and the practicing with the concepts today will help you to redesign our natural and cultural world into a more human and sustainable way. So, welcome to you all. welcome to Iris and Nanna. I'm a big fan, you know.
We are your fans.
So stage is yours.
Okay, cool. You're speaking this, right? Oh, okay. So, in this hour, or maybe 30 minutes, critical concepts for the creative humanities will be looked at through a feminist lens, not only because it is March 8th, but also because this book has a feminist agenda. This agenda does not exhaust the project of the book, but it surely has informed the writing of the book and will therefore also inform what can be done with the concepts that it contains. We celebrate both International Women's Day and the publication of critical concepts for the creative humanities in a time of war in Ukraine. The writing of the book was not empty of war or crisis. Think of the war and poverty-driven refugee crisis in the Mediterranean Sea. Think of what is done to persons, families, ethnic groups at borders across the globe, like the Mexico-US border or the Gaza Strip. Think of climate change and climate refugees, both human and animal, in and around polluted waters and burning forests and fields. Think of the global COVID-19 pandemic that has hit and continues to hit the entire world, but in unequal ways. When will the vaccines reach Africa? It is in such a dynamic, unpredictable and indeterminate world that our book has come about, and it is such a world in constant motion and flux to which our book responds. It responds with words, we call them concepts, that may describe our world, that allow for reflection on this world, and that may even help to change it. The very difference between words on the one hand and concepts on the other is that concepts are not just descriptive. They do not just refer to a state of affairs. They also offer a perspective on such a state and on why I may see this and you may see that, while looking at and being part of the same world. Working with concepts invites for self-reflection. What is the use of and the politics and ethics behind making this visible and not that? I may have to change my concepts a little bit after having been confronted with that because of its importance, both descriptive, normative, and visionary. Our book offers critical concepts for creative humanities. The book's concepts are themselves critical in the sense of being perhaps essential for a better world to come. By being critical in the sense of analytical, sensitive to power and effective relations, we offer tools for carving out space and places, time and the urgency for working toward transformation and change. This is how they may be creative. The intended readers of our book are academics from cultural studies, media studies, philosophy, and we intend to reach you, cultural professionals such as artistic leaders, creative directors, designers, and other makers. Both academics from the humanities, such as we ourselves, and those working in the fields of art and culture, work with, respond to, and intervene in a world in constant flux and motion. Humanists and post-humanists, creatives and creative directors never think of their work or their projects, their work or their words, as simply referring to a simple state of affairs that can be grasped and captured. We approach the world and our work as more complex than that, especially in times of war, border politics, climate change, a pandemic that will not be over soon and that will not be the last one we face.
The words in our book are perhaps not immediately recognizable as explicitly or exclusively feminist tools. Our tools, such as between no longer and not yet, openness, prefiguration, speculation, or the words that you find on your cards, play with the necessity to create feminist responses to crises that respond to what those affected by the crises may be in need of. Often the work with our tools is done in co-creation with these such a structure of inequalities, provoked by a visionary thinker or a maker, a designer perhaps, or even a mystic. By looking only inwardly, closed societies see nothing but what they themselves bring forward. They perpetuate top-down power play, and the felt oppressions are not easy to change. By refraining from the closing off of decision-making sites and from the belief in the importance of such sites and of what they bring forth, glimpses of an open society occur even within closed societies. Bergson argues that for such visionary work, we need what we nowadays would call multi- or interdisciplinary methods. Multi- or interdisciplinary approaches. We need to proceed by groping our way tentatively, by a system of cross-checking, following simultaneously several methods, each of which will lead only to possibilities and probabilities, but by their mutual interplay, the result will neutralize or reinforce one another, leading to reciprocal verification and correction. In open societies, there are options for changing solidified, unequal power relations coming out of the collaboration of many. Feminism is one such method that, together with other methods, may provoke change, as well as it is also recognizable within other methods. As a method, and together with other methods, feminism has the potential to work towards new visions when picked up by thinkers, makers, or other visionaries. So feminism is usually defined according to 3 waves. Each of these waves of feminism has added a set of tools to our collective toolbox. The waves respond to one another and exist alongside each other. The first feminist wave started cresting around 1900, when women asked to become part of the category of human. Human referred to men at the time, and women wanted to be able to do what men or humans could do. Most importantly, they wanted to have the right to vote. The second feminist wave crested around 1968. Women wanted to stay women, and they wanted to push womanhood to all of our full potential. We, wanted to no longer play it along the rules defined by men's humanness. Women are different humans, and we, set different rules, informed by our different embodiment and social embeddedness. The differentiation of women as a claim was already present around 1900 when, with the formerly enslaved black woman, Sojourner Truth, who was not getting the right to vote, asking, "Ain't I a woman?" But around 1968, the claim for a differentiation of women, both in their difference from men and as different among each other, was experimented with explicitly and widely. Black women, indeed, lesbian women, butches and femmes, the black lesbian sister outsider of Audre Lorde and our own Gloria Wekker, all of these women made up the visions of the second feminist wave by putting the category not of man or of human, but of woman first. The third wave was the wave of the 1990s. of the year 2000 and continuing. Around this time, intersectionality took center stage. And feminism was no longer about gender alone. It was immediately also about race, ethnicity, sexuality again, class perhaps, education, religion, gender identity, able-bodiedness, age, nationality, citizen status. Intersectionality heralded and heralds a thinking in crisscrossing and mutually interplaying axes and spectra, rather than in binary oppositions and top-down, bottom-up fixity. And as such, feminism now responds to and is part of a broader social and theoretical movement sharing and infusing agendas and movements such as anti-racism, trans lives and trans politics, sustainability and peace.
In our book, we work with and invite our readers to work with the theory and practice of such intersectional critical thinking. Let's think a bit more about the principle and agenda of intersectional thinking, both in feminism and beyond. How to see, where to see from, what limits to vision, what to see for, whom to see with, who gets to have more than one point of view, who gets blinkered, who interprets the visual field, what other sensory powers do we wish to cultivate beside vision? These questions were asked by Donna Haraway already in 1988. Haraway, the feminist theorist behind the now famous and often used phrase, an assignment to stay with the trouble, asked the questions in an attempt to be both critical about and creative with words and worlds. Earlier we referred to the philosopher Bergson, who suggested openings towards transformation and change are created when collaborating and using many methods at once. Haraway does the same suggestion. Research, who gets to speak out, and add to that what those that are not yet heard bring to the table. Collaboratively form a statement and a goal, a politics and an ethics. Our world is too dynamic, in motion and in flux, to all too easily know the answer to it and how to intervene, and know how to intervene. It is a difficult task to form an agenda for our world and to make sure that as many visions as possible are included, as many voices heard. In our book, we suggest that in order to form agendas, we need 3 ingredients. Words that denote processes, words that denote connections and relations, and understanding how to create connections, not just in the world, but also between those words, between concepts. Words, concepts that one may need in collaborative projects. For this reason, we have written a book that consists of 70 entries, so 70 short chapters. All entries have the same structure. They start with a definition of the term in question. The gap, interval or passage between no longer and not yet is a place, moment or movement in which imagining takes place. The word openness denotes a quality, the quality of being open. As a concept, however, openness is more complicated than simply referring to the phenomenon of formal accessibility or to the open feel of a land or a cityscape, a community, a person, professional, or a set of ideas. The complication is in the opposite that comes with the suggestion of something or somebody being open, namely closeness or closure. Prefiguration, as a form of foreshadowing, is a rhetorical and artistic technique. It is also a religious and political trope, or strategy. The operative logics of prefiguration both borrow from and immediately complicate anticipation as a linear, teleological, and self-fulfilling pattern. Speculation is both a bold gesture and it is not. To speculate means to propose and suggest, and to reach into a future of an elsewhere, but doing so from a framework that is before or outside the speculation that it produces. In our book, the definitions, I just gave 4 examples, that are followed by a theoretical situating of the term in question. We highlight a thinker that has, or a group of thinkers that have, written about the term and that have demonstrated its complexities, its challenges, and why the term is exciting for working in and working with our complicated societies and technologies, with our nature, cultural environments. The last part of every entry in our book offers a demonstration of how makers or designers have worked with the concept in a gesture of responding to and intervening in the world in which they find themselves. How to undertake a prefigurative or speculative project. How to linger between no longer and not yet, between openness and closure. Another feature of our book is that it is hypertextual. We offer explicit connections between entries by using boldface. When openness appears in another entry, the word has been highlighted, and by offering a glossary randomizer online. We will now use the glossary randomizer to show you some sets of 3 concepts that have been included in our book. Somebody will now miraculously push the button of start.
We just say it like that.
Somewhere.
Yes?
Yes.
Please.
Go.
Click. So what you see here is that, you can do it 3 times or 2 more times. That with the randomizer, random concepts pop up, just like on your card. Which we hope triggers a thinking of relations between the terms. What emerges when we bring these terms into connection, or these terms on your cards?
Curation, encounter, and dirt. Let's think about the connection between these concepts. Let's go to reset.
We just very much like this tool.
And now to start.
This is not the version where you get the definition.
No.
Okay.
Curation.
Again,
for some reason. It's a randomizer.
It should be.
Classification. Synchrony, synchronicity.
I like this one.
This would be quite a task, to put these words in a triangle and to think about what they collectively produce. Let's do one more.
Okay, one more.
Scape or scapes. So now you see what kinds of concepts are in the book. Prefiguration, well, you already know what the definition of that word is. And then we have...
Between no longer and yet. Oh.
Randomization. Well, that's the perfect way to end.
That's beautiful. Am I here?
Yeah.
Okay, so 70 concepts may seem to be much or even abundant, but our book is unfinished. Just like any feminist agenda, our book is open-ended. multi-voice, and inviting for further cross-connections and comparing notes with others, and thereby for also new serendipitous encounters. And in addition to that, the words we offer are words for making. Our invitation to you as a reader is to use our book and the accompanying randomizer. You may find yourself unexpectedly inspired by a concept, or you may find yourself bringing a new concept to the table for a specific project, either known or not yet known. And we hope to hear from our readers what concepts they have used, in what combinations, for what kinds of critical intersectional projects or for fun, and with what results. So in order to kickstart this process, we invite you to take a look at the card you've been offered. And our card offers a set of 3 concepts, randomized. We invite you to try to imagine what the concepts on the card may mean. You can do this individually, or you can, chat with your the people around you. You don't have to do it now, but we, can do it afterwards with a drink. So you think about what it might mean. What does accident, just bear with me for a second, and then you can... So what does accident mean? And why may accident be a concept of relevance in the 21st century? What is the meaning of habit? Or of glow? And what may these concepts bring forward when working with them now, today? What is contagion more than something that simply refers to COVID-19? After you've done this, and perhaps in small groups or people sitting next to you, or later or next week, we want to invite you to imagine specifically what is feminist. What could be feminist about the concept, or about the intersection of these concepts? How may glow or accident or habit or contagion contribute to a feminist agenda, or inform us about a feminist agenda? How may a feminist agenda add to the definition of a concept that you have imagined so far? By doing such simple exercises, the first, a brain dump, that brings up everything you already know or can imagine about these process words that usually also have a very common meaning. And the second, a connective thinking about, after the invitation, that you infuse the definition with feminism. So you bring it into relation to each other and you bring feminism in the mix. You do connective thinking. When you do that, you are working with the book. And we hope you will continue to do so and enjoy that working, thinking with the book. And thank you for your attention so far. And have fun.
This is so cool.
Ja. What's happening? Oké, jij gaat naar die.
Heel hard praten, kan ik ook heel goed.
Hoe moet ik
Ik ga een vraag stellen.
Moet ik dit aanzetten? Moet ik hem aanzetten?
Even.
To switch it on.
What has been the reason that you chose
This
feminism
yeah.
as a reference point?
Saskia, would you please come here?
Oh, that's going to make it difficult for people to... No, that's it. So,
Just
okay,
go for
we
it.
can repeat your question.
And what's the reason why you chose feminism as a reference point?
Okay. Okay. There are multiple answers. The first one is the occasion, in the sense that we are invited to look back at the project through a feminist lens. And we discover, or we know already, of course, that feminism is part of a critical agenda that we very much want to put forward through the book. So feminism is actually to be found precisely in the intersection of many ways or many critical agendas, and opens up to also other critical agendas. And we find a lot of connection between the intersectionality of contemporary feminist thinking and the way that the book also invites to not just have one critical lens, but to bring any kind of critical lens in connection to others. So this very connective core that is part of the organization even of this book, that is by definition unfinished, multifocal, does not tell one story, but it provides a starting point, that in a way we think is also a feminist gesture, or is part of a feminist agenda. But you also have another answer that's going to really bring it home.
There's so many answers to this important question. So we already mentioned Gloria Wekker as an important Dutch feminist. There's another important feminist that works at our university, Rosie Braidotti. She has a definition of feminism that reads, feminism is critique plus creativity. And our book has critical concepts for the creative humanities. So this already shows you that, with feminism being analytical, you have to be reflective and self-reflexive. And, in that sense it is critical, but also feminism itself doesn't really know where that criticality will lead us to. It's not that, it's just a recipe or something. So there's always criticism or critique and creativity that's part of feminism as a project, and in that sense also of this book. It's a nice formula. I've been teaching it for so many years. Feminism is critique and creativity. Yeah. Yeah.
Ik zie meer vragen.
Nobody dares to ask questions anymore now that their mic is
But you could shout a question also in Dutch, and we'll just repeat the question. And... Gaia?
Ik was even een aantekening aan het maken van mijn zenuwachtig. En dat was even overlegd. Dat was even vraag. Sorry. Moet ik een vraag stellen?
Nee, het hoeft niet. Helemaal.
Well, the card you have has a QR code, and you can sign for the book, but it is also online. At the University of Utrecht, you can see it total. But of course, you need to help the writers and buy it.
No, it's much nicer to have a physical copy of the book. That's the point, I guess.
And we paid the publisher to make it open access, so it is available. So you can, use it, download it, have a peek at it, spread it around. It's freely available, and that's important for open science. Yeah, but of course the book is nice to touch. It has a really nice cover to touch. There's a sample there. But and there's also sorry?
Is there a Dutch version?
Not yet.
No, but if
Are you a translator? Yeah.
And also there's a QR code, and I think you can get in touch. The randomizer, if you want to check it out, it's online. You can reach us if you want to have a chat about anything.
Shall I ask one more question then?
Yeah, wonderful.
And I'm sort of gathering my thoughts in my mind, because you talked about 3 waves of feminism, and the feeling that I have is that we're on the verge of a 4th one.
That's your question.
And the question that I have is that there's a difference between feminism as a movement and the fact that I think that we need to look into what's femininity and what's masculinity. And if we would be wise enough to investigate those two, then you would go beyond feminism. And we might just get into a completely different flow with each other.
Yeah.
That's why I asked the first question, because somehow we get stuck within feminism because we do not investigate what femininity actually means. So I was just wondering, have you investigated femininity also?
Can you first repeat very quickly?
I'm sorry, but I first need to give some sort of...
Je moet gewoon even zeggen dat je een boek hebt geschreven.
Yeah. No, so it's a super important question. So, or maybe an issue that is being raised here. So, aren't we on? So, we talked about 3 feminist waves: the first, the second, and the third. You know, the third one, and starting in the 1990s. You know, maybe also cresting in around the year 2000. And then there is this question of, aren't we on the verge of a 4th feminist wave that would, and the assignment kind of, that's your speculation, is that this 4th wave is about really truly researching what is femininity.
And actually, what is humanity?
And what is humanity? Yeah,
If you would
yeah,
actually look into femininity and masculinity,
Yeah.
you might just end up with a human.
yeah.
And
You might just end up with
You're
your
back, maybe in a
Yeah.
way, in a reverse way to the first
because
wave.
we've constantly been fighting for our place, and at one point we might just find our place if we look at masculinity and femininity instead of the human feminine and the human masculine.
yeah.
The question is going even further. The question now is, what is gender?
What is gender?
What is gender?
Yeah.
Does it define you? In what
Yeah.
level, where are you on the whole humanity spectrum?
Well, that's the reason why I'm very interested in in investigating femininity, because I think that part of our development towards the gender discussion, we're entering a gender discussion without investigating what masculinity
Yeah,
and
maybe we have to
femininity
go a step.
is. So sometimes I feel that we get stuck in 60s, 70s, 80s gender identities without actually
Yeah.
investigating them.
Yeah.
That's why I find it very, I think it's a very important thing that we're somehow overlooking.
Yeah.
And we're getting stuck into a word concept.
Yeah. Now, what you're asking and what is happening here in the audience, I mean, this is so important. You're suggesting, for example, that, you know, maybe we keep on adding, you know, gender identities, but when we presented the feminist waves, the 3 feminist waves, we kind of talked about this constant adding up of identities within the category of woman. We introduced that as something that was part of the second feminist wave. And this famous question that was asked by a black woman, ain't I a woman? That question was asked around 1900. So the point is, whatever, and we talked about this, do we in this context talk about like a 4th feminist wave, or maybe we have to get rid of this whole wave movement altogether? The last option, getting rid of the wave movement model, I don't want to do, because if you look at feminist scholarship, for example, or the feminist movement, there's only one thing that it has produced as some sort of piece of, some sort of instrument. It's the wave model. So if we now as feminists are going to say, let's get rid of it, no, what we have to do is to say waves, they're about constant movement, development, whatever you call it. A constant returning and complexification, and you know, the same question returns but in a little bit of a different way all over again. It doesn't, 1900, 1968, the year 2000, now it's a constant kind of asking of the same question. There's also another, but a little bit differently, of course. There's also another way of answering this question. You could say that this wave model is divides feminism up in certain generations. You know, let's say grandmother, mother, daughter, or great-great-grandmother, mother, you know, unborn child of my daughter, whatever. So, you know, however you, and this notion of the generation is an interesting notion, because generation, it's a concept in our book as well, has 2 meanings. Generation means the simple, like, generations that you can add up, what you were also doing. There's this generation and then that one and then that one. But generation is also a verb, which means that, you know, when there is movement, you know, when a generation stands up and asks maybe the same question all over again, you have no idea of the answers. So it's very complicated, and I agree that, you know, maybe we have to research femininity or masculinity. When I hear that as a trained gender scholar, I'm like, oh my God, I can give you a list of references of people that have not answered that question, but attempted to answer it. And you want to add to that same question, and that's very beautiful.
The reason, just, and then I'll keep quiet.
No, don't. No need to keep quiet.
I have a friend, for example, who's constantly fighting with the fact that she feels that if she's not working, she is not a valid member of society. And at the same time, we're talking about feminism. I'm talking with her about feminism, etc. She is an extremely added value to society, but in our mind, you are added value to society when you have an economical value. So somehow along the way, in our last 100 years, we've been able to add ourselves as women to society, etc. But we have not been able to only the masculine thought of how work looks like has economical value or has societal value. So somehow we get stuck. We get stuck because why is womanhood not recognized for their value in society?
So this is an example of...
We haven't given it economical value. Eh? If it doesn't have economical value, it doesn't have value.
Or rational value.
Oh man, if you want to get me mad.
Yeah.
Because then we've made a huge progress in feminism, but we have not actually acknowledged what womanhood might add to society.
Yeah.
And if I look at the current time and what's happening now, I think it's quite clear what, if we would investigate femininity, what it might add to the masculine side. So that's why I find it so very important, because we have economical questions, we have peace questions, etc. But somehow we don't seem to add balance.
It's interesting what is happening, I think, here in the audience is that what you are saying basically is that everything is gendered. Call it work, call it whatever. Everything is gendered, everything. You know, this mic is gendered. What you're saying, Gaia, is that, you know, the very question, so you're on the critical side of the feminism is criticism plus creativity kind of, which is, well, just for now. I mean, you're always more than one thing. So Gaia is more in this discussion on, and of course I'm polarizing, you know, on the creativity side of things, where the question is, what is gender? So you're saying everything is gendered, and, you know, I'm frustrated by it, but I also want to work through it. I want to acknowledge it. I want to change it. I want to work with it. And you're saying we have to go back to the question, what's gender? And maybe that is what is happening in society today. And the point about feminism is that it is always both. So it's there are no easy answers in feminism, which is cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think it's really interesting. Because you asked two questions, and therefore I know my question. But could it be that feminism is about reacting to the fact that our world is mostly built by masculine energy? Like we created systems, we created like rationalized systems that has to have an outcome, and we underestimated the value of feminine energy, and therefore we needed some like critical resistance to that to make us aware that there's more to what we already have built.
Yeah.
And I think we enter a time now that we kind of realize that we all possess as human masculine and feminine energy.
Cool.
And it's more about balancing the two into every human and finding like the balance, instead of we need to fight against the masculinity, yeah. So it's, I'm not exactly, but that are my thoughts about, like, could it be that the feminism, I'm glad you explained it, because I think it's more about a movement. We need it to get people aware of how that things weren't working the way the world was operating. And now it could be like, we need both, but to make it balanced, we need some more feminine energy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's in your question or comment, there are already at least two different definitions again of femininity. First, you're saying femininity is something that is, I don't know, it's the force that is underneath or aside all of the projects that want to structure, etc. And you're also saying you've got two things. There's femininity and masculinity. So, and probably both of these configurations have some truth to it.
It's not in gender, but it's in energy.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm looking at Annemone.
Are we having drinks now?
Questions?
Or comments?
Or shall we have drinks? Yes? Okay.
There's a question.
Oh, small
drinks.
question? Drinks? Okay. Well, yeah, I hope you get just as enthusiastic about these two power women as I do. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I want to thank you both for being here today. And I also want to thank the team of Kazerne, Sandra, Lydia, Pim. They do the magic, and also Robert. Thank you for doing the great job today again. And let's have drinks.
Yay!
Oh ja, en als jullie nog willen aanschuiven dadelijk bij het eten, we hebben een 3 gangen menu. En dan kunnen we gewoon lekker doorpraten als jullie willen. Daarmee sponsor je de kazerne overigens ook. Dus.